In 1870, the French writer Jules Verne penned his classic novel 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. It was the tale of the mysterious Captain Nemo and his astonishing submarine, the Nautilus. The novel popularized the idea of the submarine decades before a true practical submersible would come into existence. In 1952, Walt Disney was inspired by designer Harper Goff to purchase the film rights to 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. In the novel, Verne's Nautilus derived its power from electricity, but the Disney version would tap into the most technologically advanced power known at the time, atomic energy. And while the Disney team was developing their Nautilus at the studio on the West Coast, another nuclear submarine by the same name was being developed on the East Coast by the United States Navy. The USS Nautilus, the world's first nuclear submarine, was launched on January 21, 1954. And as it turns out, Walt Disney had a little something to do with that submarine as well.
When Nautilus came out, Walt Disney wanted to be part of it. Now, Disney, during the Second World War, had made all the emblems they put on the airplanes and the patches, you see those things. And all the submarine patches are Disney characters. But it was made by his staff, not Nautilus. He did it. Walt Disney did that personally. He wanted his stamp on that.
As the USS Nautilus began her career with the Navy, the Disney production of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea was nearing completion, and Walt was supervising the effects-laden action scene that would be the centerpiece of the movie.
He invited me over when he was making 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. They had 15 or 18 cameras, the arms banging against the submarine, and Walt sat back and he looked at it, and I was out there with him. And when it was all through, the director came up and he said, "That was a great shot, I think we had it." And Walt said, "No," he said, "some of the arms didn't look just right to me. They didn't look like they were working." And the director says, "Yeah, but we had a lot of cameras we could cut away." He says, "No," he says, "we'll do it again." He said, "But we've smashed the octopus to pieces." He says, "I know, build it again."
It was that same drive for perfection that would constantly motivate Walt to seek out new ways to change and improve Disneyland Park after it opened in 1955.
The lagoon where the submarines are today has always been a place for a boat ride at Disneyland. It started in 1955 for the Phantom boats, which were these individually powered, guest-driven, small Buck Rogers type boats, which the guests had complete control of, so they kept crashing and breaking down and causing all sorts of trouble, so they didn't last very long. Disney quickly replaced them with a motorboat cruise, which was on a track, which was operationally a lot better and safer, but kind of bored Walt Disney. He wanted something a little more interesting, a little more exotic. His whole idea for Disneyland was something that you could see nowhere else.
In the fall of 1957, something you definitely could see nowhere else had been launched into space by the Soviet Union. Sputnik, the world's first artificial satellite, was circling in orbit above the Earth. The Cold War was in full swing. The race to space had begun, and the U.S. wasn't even at the starting line.
The launching of Sputnik on the October 4th, 1957, it was a shock for the United States, because the United States has no doubt that it will be first in the world, and that all achievement will come from the United States.
This thing is going around the world, beep, 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 and we're down in Cape Canaveral shooting the Vanguard rocket and it falls in the ocean. The U.S. was looking like a bunch of idiots. So Eisenhower said, we got to do something. First of all, he said, shoot the thing down. Shoot down it. They said, Eisenhower, we can't get up there. Never mind shoot it down. We can't even get up there. So he said, well, we got to do something to regain U.S. prestige, and that's when he decided to use Nautilus.
Eisenhower's plan was to use the Nautilus to make the first polar crossing, an important route, since any nuclear missiles fired at the United States by the Soviet Union would traverse this shortest path between the two Cold War rivals.
The problem being, there was no way to navigate. It's easy to get to the North Pole, you just head north. Once you get there, how do you get back? Everywhere you go is south, right? They couldn't figure out how to do that. They had a new piece of equipment, but didn't know if it would work. They had the nose cone of a Navajo missile. It never was operational. They bolted to the deck, ran the wires into a panel, and said, chase the missile across the North Pole. It had a design life of 15 minutes. So now they called it the inertial guidance system, which today is the way they do it. But this was the first time it was tried. The inertial guidance system was going to tell you where you're going by remembering where you have been. It'd be like you driving home at night looking out the rearview mirror. You could make it. You'd ricochet off a lot of telephone poles on the way, but you could make it if you knew where you've been. That was the idea of the submarine. There were no maps of the Arctic. In 1937, some aviator had drilled a hole through the ice and dropped the lead line down and found out there was 5 miles of water in it, he said. That was the map. So when we left, they gave us a piece of paper and a pencil, said, make one, you know?
On the evening of August 3rd, 1958, on her third attempt, the Nautilus crossed beneath the polar ice cap. The then 25-year-old Bill McNally was manning his station in the submarine's nuclear reactor compartment.
When we got under the North Pole, we felt you had to have a celebration of some type, you know. We couldn't plant a flag. You were going to put a flag in the torpedo room and say North Pole. So we decided to throw a little party, and when you're at the North Pole, you need a Santa Claus. So I was the one that played the part of Santa Claus. Got my picture in Life magazine. That was a lot of fun. They sent us right over to England to take advantage of the publicity. And we had a big to-do over there. Then we came back to New York, down Broadway, and they took a tape parade, you know, all that good stuff. We were able to get ahead of the Russians for a little bit. Then a couple of years later, we caught them in space anyway, so everything was fine from that point on. But for a little while there, we had got to jump ahead of the Ruskies.
The USS Nautilus would later go on to become the first submarine to journey 20,000 leagues under the sea. With the news of the Nautilus' triumph still buzzing in the consciousness of America, Walt Disney was about to unveil a brand new water attraction in his lagoon that would make every child and child at heart sit up and take notice. On June 6, 1959, Walt Disney presented his very own submarine fleet to the world.
When that opened in 1959, it was part of the second grand opening of Disneyland, in a sense. He had been introducing a couple rides every year since Disneyland opened, but when the submarines opened, there were such big attractions. 6 new attractions opened within a week of each other. The first of them was the submarine voyage, and they remade their whole ticket system based on it. It was such an exciting attraction that the submarine voyage became the first e-ticket attraction Disneyland had ever had. Before, the highest you could go was the D ticket on the Jungle Cruise, and now they had something so big they had to invent a new letter.
My history with this ride goes back to being an 8-year-old kid who came here on the day that it opened.
Like millions of other children, Tony Baxter watched Walt Disney on television the night before as he introduced the attraction.
We sat there mesmerized, knowing that the very next morning we were going to come to the park and spend what would be the very first e-tickets here at Disneyland.
The children of America weren't the only ones excited about Disneyland Park and Walt's new submarines.
In 1959, in September, my father, Nikita Khrushchev, the head of the Soviet government, visited United States. It is the first visit to the United States of all Russian history, of all millennium. So he flew there and he took us, his family, with them. It was very important. We met with President Eisenhower. When we came to the Los Angeles, we knew all our schedule. And the visiting Disneyland was on the schedule because the president wanted to show all this American achievement. In 1959, Disneyland, one of the biggest most important American amusement park.
Walt was prepared for the photo opportunity. They would stand before the new submarine voyage, and Disney would tell Khrushchev that his was the 8th largest submarine fleet in the world.
And the Khrushchev knew that it is a huge crowd waiting there. And then Mr. Paulson told Khrushchev, no, we cannot go there because I cannot guarantee your security. And Khrushchev was angry, told, I will go there for my own.
Unfortunately, Mr. Khrushchev and his family never did make a visit to the park, and the stories of his anger at the missed opportunity would be the stuff of legend. Just a few years later, Tony Baxter's fascination with the park would lead him to a job as a Disneyland cast member.
I got a job at Disneyland, first scooping ice cream over at Carnation, and a few years later I came to Tomorrowland and my first ride was here on the submarine.
But the captains of the subs weren't the only positions available in the early days of the attraction. For a while, the submarine lagoon had its very own live mermaids.
They recruited about a dozen girls, all beautiful women. If they didn't have long hair, they got a wig. They auditioned them at the pool at the Disneyland Hotel to see who looked the best in swim fin. And they put them in the middle of the lagoon. People loved it. They thought it was so neat to see real live mermaids out there.
Let me tell you, that water was freezing. We all just could not stay in it more than 10 or 15 minutes at a time. But once we got used to this, and as the weather got warmer, then so did the water. One of the best things about being a mermaid at Disneyland was the camaraderie I had with the other mermaids. And we would have a lot of fun on that rock, even though it was a long day and we were wet and cold many times. We always seemed to be able to find things to keep ourselves amused.
But alas, the days of the live mermaids would eventually come to an end.
There was too much wear and tear on the costumes. Whenever the girls would move around on the coral reefs, they'd start tearing their fins. And even worse, the chlorine was giving a beating to their skin, and especially their hair, which started to turn green. And you can't have green-haired mermaids.
At night, a couple of sailors were testing each other as to whether they would go out and swim to try and catch a mermaid. And that didn't go over too well, so that sort of began the end of what had been like about a 10-year tradition.
Tony Baxter would go on to a career with Walt Disney Imagineering, and the submarine voyage would see many other changes over the years. But by the 1990s, the attraction no longer held the same appeal for guests that it did in its heyday.
Submarine rides at both Disneyland and the Magic Kingdom at Disney World were among the most expensive, time-consuming, labor-intensive, high-maintenance, low-capacity attractions in the park.
That expense and declining interest from guests led to the eventual closure of the attraction on September 19, 1998.
The very day that we closed this, and I rode it for the last time, and I was saying goodbye to Atlantis and saying goodbye to the coral reef, I thought, if I have one thing that's going to drive me, it's going to be to get this ride back open.
In those years after the closure of Disneyland Submarine Voyage, there were a number of ideas proposed to replace it, ranging from extremely elaborate attractions such as a $100 million simulator attraction based on the movie Atlantis, or a ride based on the Little Mermaid Ariel attraction.
And then we tried it with Treasure Planet, and then a wonderful thing happened. Pixar created Finding Nemo.
Finding Nemo was a huge financial and critical success for Pixar and Disney Studios. And yes, Little Nemo's name is a nod to the captain of Jules Verne's Nautilus.
In 2003, Finding Nemo comes along, this fantastic movie that's based underwater, and we've got a ride where the show takes place underwater. So it was one of those natural happenstances, or we had a classic attraction, a classic movie, what was quickly becoming a classic Disney Pixar film, and the two just came together and we started working on ideas.
We brought a test down here and we showed it to Disneyland management, and they fell in love with it. And the next thing we knew, we began a journey of the next 3 years, which has been an incredible effort on everybody's part to bring this back to life. Not only bring it back to life, but really exceed all the technologies and magic that were here originally.
While the concept was a match made in heaven, it would take a technological breakthrough to actually make the attraction a reality.
At Walt Disney Imagineering, we developed a way to project Nemo and all of his friends underwater. That was a huge breakthrough for us in telling this story and making the sets just so beautiful and believable. And then when you look through into these sets, you see Nemo, Squirt, Marlin, exactly as you're used to seeing them. So that was a huge breakthrough for us to be able to do the story.
To go along with the projected characters, elaborate and colorful sets were designed and constructed to recreate the fanciful world of Disney Pixar's Finding Nemo. But creating sets that will exist completely submerged underwater has its challenges, and the Walt Disney Imagineering team developed creative ways to deal with them.
One of the things that we had to develop for the attraction was how to paint underwater. And one of our production designers came up with this beautiful idea of taking powdered glass, actual little beads of glass that have color impregnated in them, and to paint with glass. So when you go through the lagoon, all the color you're seeing in the coral and on the rocks and along the sidewalls is actually done with glass. It's recycled glass, so it was a good story for us as far as the environment went. We think the color is going to last much, much longer than traditional paint would, and we got such a vibrancy that we normally wouldn't be able to pull off with paint, with the layers and layers of these different colored beads glass. We're really, really thrilled with how it turned out.
With the ability to project underwater and the construction underway on the ornate sets, the team at Pixar Animation Studios began their efforts to bring Nemo's underwater world to life.
Basically, we wanted to be able to re-experience all the fun of finding Nemo again, but we didn't really want the threat of having been scooped up by the dentist or to have, the sharks be our enemy again. We really wanted to sort of revisit all our old friends, and that's the story we ended up crafting.
What if Crush and Squirt Nemo were here as well, And we had some traveling in and out to help make it feel like, yeah, that'd be fine. Yeah, that would work.
Of course, in order to experience the world of Nemo, guests would need a vehicle to take them on their underwater journey.
We are using the 8 original subs from the 1959 attraction. They've been top to bottom refurbished, brand new audio systems on them. They're really, really beautifully done, but it's all the original submarines.
But the 8 original subs aren't the only tip of the hat to the past.
With Finding Nemo Submarine Voyage, we really wanted to give a nod to the original attraction. So we've got some ruins that are sort of in homage to the original attraction. We've got some lines. Our captain says some of the same lines that you've heard before. And along the way, there's some other little surprises.
Going into the graveyard of ships, if you look closely, the first wrecked ship is actually one that was part of the original ride. And if you remember the old ride, the last thing that was in it was a good old sea serpent. Well, he's not there anymore, but for those of you who really believe in magic, and if you look really, really hard, you might be able to find evidence of that sea serpent at the end of our ride.
And so, with a salute to the past and anticipation for the future, the new Disneyland submarine fleet was recommissioned by the U.S. Navy, and the countdown to opening day was officially underway.
The Finding Nemo Submarine Voyage.
After years of anticipation, opening day for the Finding Nemo submarine voyage had finally arrived. The guests queued up to be among the very first to experience this amazing new attraction.
I am a big Nemo fan. Yeah, he's a cool fish. I like him. He's orange, kind of like my hair. And he likes water. I like water too. I go to the beach all the time. It's pretty great.
I've been waiting for it since it closed down, the original ride. And I'm a Nemo fan. I love Finding Nemo.
Finding Nemo!
We're big Disney fans, and we're really excited about the subs being back in the lagoon. And we just hope for Disney magic.
Before they knew it, the moment they'd been waiting for had finally arrived.
Watch your step.
It's awesome. It's really cool. Instead of like the characters being like out in the water as animatronics, it's a new technology where it's a video, but it looks like it's out in the water. And it's pretty cool like to see it done like that. And they stayed really true to the movie, which was really good.
It was great. It was awesome. It was just like the movie.
It was a blast. They have these animated characters that just come right up, they swim right up to your window. Very cool.
One thing about this attraction that we've all realized right away was it's a chance to deliver underwater theater. Where else do you get to see that? Where else are you going to experience a show like this and looking at it through water? It's such a perfect blend of story and technology. We developed a way to do these projections underwater in such a way that I think people will be really, really amazed.
We were able to get enough amazing things in there that you're gonna have to ride it 1,000 times to really see it all. Every seat is different, and we have 20 different seats on both sides. Even the first sub and the third sub going out have slightly different stories too. So come back many, many times, and I think everyone's gonna really enjoy it.
Oh, give me some food. Noggin.
The thing that I hope everyone really enjoys about this attraction is being fully immersed in the magical, fantastic world that was originally created by Pixar for the movie. And to completely lose yourself in that, to enjoy all the different places that Nemo and his friends and the submarine take you, and it's going to be quite an extraordinary journey for everybody.
The lagoon of Finding Nemo's submarine voyage is not the only place you can find yourself immersed at Disneyland Park during the Year of a Million Dreams, because just next door to the lagoon, you will find the Jedi Training Academy.
The Jedi Training Academy is a great new experience here at the Disneyland Resort. We brought it on board as part of the Year of a Million Dreams, and it really is an immersive experience for our guests to really get inside the Star Wars universe. It's a wonderful story where our guests get to participate in learning how to use a lightsaber. As the children are learning how to use those lightsabers, and we do use training lightsabers, real lightsabers are a bit too dangerous for our newer learners. There's a potential for the dark side of the Force to take notice of these new Padawans and to make an appearance. If that were to happen, I know that our Jedi Master and our Jedi Knight would help those young trainees to do some battle with the dark side of the Force and make sure that they don't cause any trouble here at Disneyland. For those who participate, it's an opportunity of a lifetime to actually take out a lightsaber and battle with Darth Vader. And for their parents to see their child doing that is an amazing thing. So whether you're watching from the audience or whether you're participating yourself, it's really a unique opportunity to participate in the Star Wars universe.
Please welcome our newest Padawan!
But if a duel with the dark side of the Force is not your cup of tea, perhaps a cup of tea with the princesses at the Princess Fantasy Fair would be more fitting.
Princess Fantasy Fair is an immersive experience that we started here for the Disneyland's Year of a Million Dreams. It's a place where you can go and you can be royalty, you can meet all the Disney princesses and become part of the magic here at the Disneyland Resort. First thing you can do is do our royal walk and meet all the princesses that are waiting there for you. We have craft areas where you can color, of course they're all princess themed, and you become a princess. You learn how to bow and curtsy and greet other princesses in our royal celebration. Sir Elias and Lady Lillian teach you how to become a princess. And then of course the princesses come and join you at the end of that, and we have a grand finale where you get to dance with the princesses in the Royal Ribbon Carousel. So at the Disney Princess Fantasy Fair, that's where your royal dreams come true. You get to immerse yourself in the Disney magic.
A little Disney magic might come in handy if you happen to wander away from the Princess Fantasy Fair and find yourself in another part of the park that has been taken over by the Scourge of the Sea.
If you've ever dreamed of what it would be like to be a pirate, this is the place where you can live out that fantasy. Somehow, the Pirates of the Caribbean attraction and the characters from the movie have all collected here on this one island. And there's treasure hunting and skeleton and curses and swashbuckling adventures and Jack Sparrow battling it out for a sacred map. The rafts to Tom Sawyer's Island have been taken over by the pirates. Our caves have been dug up by these pirates who are seeking treasure. And not only have they found treasure, they've actually found cursed treasure. So if you're in the caves and you see treasure, reach for it and you're in for a surprise. It might be protected by a ghost or a skeleton, or it might simply disappear when you reach for it. So then there's all sorts of other interactive things that you can do, pumping water with a bilge pump to unveil a treasure that's hidden underwater in a sunken ship. There's a chest that has a skeleton still attached to it that you raise out of the water. And then there's a huge treasure trove guarded by Captain Jack Sparrow himself, because he's found all that treasure, and although he'll welcome you to the place and take a picture with you and even sign an autograph, he's not going to let you take any of that treasure, you can believe me.
And while you may not take any of Captain Jack's gold doubloons home with you, certainly the memories you make will be treasured for years to come. Much like the legendary submarines that have finally found their way back to Disneyland Park, thanks in part to a little boy that rode them on opening day. In Groton, Connecticut, the USS Nautilus continues its service, now as a floating museum. Her surviving crew members will gather for a reunion in August of 2008 to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the transpolar voyage. And with the Cold War a distant memory, Sergei Khrushchev, the son of the Soviet leader, became a U.S. citizen.
When I came here 17 years ago, I was in Los Angeles many times. I also never visited Disneyland because I don't want to ruin this legend that Khrushchev cannot come to the Disneyland.
And so it's true. Times may change, but real legends, they never fade away.